Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Complete Sports Media's podcast. I'm your host, Darren Campbell, and we're on the Complete Media Network. And we're really thrilled today. We have a special guest. We're very excited that could join us. We have Mark Kirton, a former professional hockey player, played 260 games in the NHL and 520 games in the AHL. Originally drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs, went on to the Detroit Red Wings, and eventually came here to the West Coast and played with the Vancouver Canucks. Mark had a great career and then went into real estate, has spent over 30 years in the Oakville, Ontario area selling real estate. And we were really excited that Mark had an opportunity to join us. We're going to talk about many things about his life today, and we're really excited. Thanks so much for joining us, Mark. Appreciate it.
Yeah, look, I look forward to it, and thanks for asking me.
Well, today's sort of a historic day here on the West Coast. It is the 10th anniversary of the Canucks playing Game 7 against the Boston Bruins 2011. Most of us know how that ended, and unfortunately, a little bit of a black mark on the city as there was a bit of a riot, but exciting time for this city. The fans got right behind the Canucks and watched them go all the way to the final. You came to the Canucks right after the year that they went to the final for the first time in 1982. And that was very historic for this franchise, for the city. Unfortunately ended the same way that 2011 did, and a little bit of problems after. But what was it like coming to Vancouver on the heels of that success of that playoff run that they went on?
Yeah, you know what? I won't lie to you. It was I was thrilled to be traded from Detroit to a better team.
Right.
And of course, Roger Nielsen was the coach there, and we had a history as well. But then when I saw who I got traded for, Ivan Boldarev, who was really an icon the year before, I think, in the Canucks run. Mm-hmm. So I knew there'd be a little bit of heat from that. But I think most of the fan base knew what Roger was a big defensive type coach, and he's bringing in a piece that he thought would help from that perspective. So there was a little bit of extra pressure, but I knew guys on the team. I mean, Stan Schmiel and I played against each other in the Memorial Cup and knew each other. That made it a little easier. And Doug Hallward from Peterborough, so there were some guys I knew. And you know what? When I did land there, I did have a real strong finish, which was really important. We lost to Calgary, I think, in the first round in game 4 or 5. With Jamie McCowan getting the overtime goal.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? That particular playoff, I probably played the best I've ever played in the NHL. So that was a good thing. And then the following year and year after that, as you know, the team kind of got dissembled.
Yeah.
And then Bill LaForge came in to coach, and yet he had so it was kind of a unraveling, such as it was in Toronto when I was drafted there. We unraveled as well, thanks to Mr. Ballard.
Right.
But there was a little added pressure in Vancouver, but you know what? I really enjoyed my time there.
You mentioned Roger Nielsen, and you guys have obviously a lot of history. I understand that you were part of his hockey camp as a teenager. He drafted you into Peterborough, drafted you actually into the NHL with the Leafs. And then you played for him here. How much did Captain Video mean to you in your career?
Well, Captain Video, I first met him probably when I was going into my junior B year, before I was drafted to Peterborough. My father suggested if I want to be on the ice all summer, I should write all the hockey schools and see if anybody would respond and hire me as a gopher or tie skates or whatever. Right. And sure enough, the only one that responded out of 6 was Roger. And, Roger had been in Peterborough for years. So he came out and met my parents And next thing you know, I'm living at his cottage north of Peterborough, and not running his hockey school, but being a gopher there for 6 weeks. So I did that a couple summers before I even got drafted by Peterborough.
Awesome.
And it's kind of interesting, Darren, but when you, they call it the Peterborough Mafia, because everybody from Coley Campbell, in league management, there's a whole kinds of Peterborough Petes all over the place.
Yeah.
And it was a fabulous time, but lots of guys did that. Like Chris King, for example, who played in the NHL. He was a gopher when I was the pro.
Oh.
So it just kind of rippled down. But it was very instrumental in my development. And I was one of the lucky ones because I got to know Roger away from the rink,
nice.
Which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Greg Millen was a part of that as well, who played in the NHL and Hockey Night in Canada. So it was, that's how I met Roger. And then, as all coaches in the NHL, they have players they like, right? And they tend to pull them around the league as they go around the league. So we actually named our oldest son after Roger, Taylor Nielsen Curtin. That's how much he meant to us.
Wow. Yeah. There's always just amazing, great stories about Roger. Everybody in the hockey community seems to love him. He has more friends than, most people are ever going to have. And he was so instrumental. Obviously, there's a statue outside the arena here, the big famous towel waving incident here in Vancouver holds a lot of memories for people. And it's great that you took such a good suggestion from your father to write these camps. And it's amazing that he took the time to say, sure, and come meet your family, give you a place to stay, all that kind of thing. That's incredible.
Well, and the fact that he probably, like, even when he drafted me to Toronto, Quenneville, I think, was second round and I was third. They didn't have a first round pick, but there's lots of pressure there too. Sure. Bringing in one of your own guys. And so he was never afraid of doing that. But with Roger, you could have a show 24 hours long with 2 or 3 people that knew Roger, and it'd be 100 stories.
Yeah.
And I think the only year that I recall Roger really having a tough year was my first year in Peterborough, because we hardly won. I think we won 10 games.
Wow. We
weren't very good. And then Roger went on to pro after that. But that one year we would go and get beat by 8 or 10 goals a night sometimes.
Amazing.
And I remember telling a story yesterday up in Sault Ste. Marie. They were a loaded team, and we went in there and we kind of knew that we were going to be in tough. And every time Sault Ste. Marie would score, because they were called the Greyhounds, this greyhound way up in the top of the arena would start on this chain, and it would make howling noises as it moved along the chain.
Okay.
So Roger had the wherewithal to send Dick Todd, who at the time was our trainer, up to the top and put a padlock on it. So they scored in the first 2 minutes, and this greyhound started chugging along about 2 feet, and it stopped. And the Sault Ste. Marie bench was laughing. We were laughing. Nice. Roger just had this grin, like just a smirk on his face, and on we went. But there was hundreds and hundreds of stories of funny things that Roger did, and rule changes, and on and on.
That's great. Yeah, fantastic. I've heard so many good Roger Nielsen stories. You mentioned Peterborough, and when he left, Gary Green ended up taking over, and you guys started rising to prominence, winning lots. You ended up making the Memorial Cup, and ended up playing the New Westminster Bruins, who are quite famous around here, obviously, from Punch McLean, Stan Smeal, and the boys. Tell me about that experience and getting to go to the Memorial Cup.
Yeah, we had a real good team that year, and but you can see, each year we progressed in junior. But the last year, we went into the Memorial Cup feeling pretty confident, because we just gone through 2 tough teams in Ottawa and Hamilton. Nice. With Bobby Smith in Ottawa and Secord and those guys in Hamilton, and we went the distance 7 and 8 games with those guys. So we got through, and then the round robin set up. in Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, where it was held that year. We beat New West twice, and went into the final and lost. And of course, Steamer had to show me that when I got traded. I think he had it on the screen in the dressing room, showing me the Memorial Cup final, which was, they beat us quite handedly. I forget the score, but by 3 or 4 goals. So, but Steamer and I both made the All-Star team for the tournament, and it was a great tournament. But when you think back, you only get so many opportunities, right? And I lost the Memorial Cup. I lost the Calder Cup in the American League when we had a loaded team. But it is what it is. At least we got there, right?
Yeah. Well, you were top scorer from Peterborough in the playoffs that year. You had 12 goals, 14 assists for 26 points. So very instrumental on helping that team get where it went to. Keith Acton was your leading scorer through the regular season, but I understand he had some type of shoulder injury that hampered him a little bit going into those last few games.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We did run into some problems. Keith Acton probably shouldn't have played the last game because he's got one arm. But yeah, he was out, and we had another guy, Howie Meeker's nephew, Mike Meeker. Okay. He was unbelievable. That guy. He was a great player, nice. And he was hurt. He had a separated shoulder, and he played.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that hurt us a little bit for sure. 2 key guys like that. But you know what? When you're in a game 7 or a final, anything can happen. I mean, look what happened to the Leafs in Montreal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I said it numerous times that when they didn't win game 5 and 6, I knew they were done, because who wants to face Carey Price in a game 7?
Yeah, it was
right.
Tough.
So, but at the end of the day, it was, we did have a great team, and a lot of guys got drafted, and then Greener, I think, went on. Yeah, he went on to coach in Washington. Yeah. But that team's still tight today. We still talk all the time.
That's amazing. I heard you said that Jeff Brubaker, trade deadline deal was one of the most instrumental moves that were made there to help that team go all the way.
Yeah, I remember we were at Maple Leaf Gardens, and I that might have been the last year, I think, that the Marlies played at Maple Leaf Gardens. But I remember sitting in the dressing room. We'd heard rumors about Gary Green bringing this guy in, because we weren't sure we were tough enough to get through Hamilton, because they were always tough, and playing in this little barn, it was tough. And so we'd heard rumors that Gary Green had this guy from Michigan State, but we didn't really know much about him. And then sure enough, in they walked into the room. I'll never forget. It was like yesterday. And Keith Acton and I and Crowder are sitting beside each other. And in comes this guy, and he looked like a mountain. He came in, and he had this big kind of furry coat, and he looked like that guy Buford Pusser from Walking Tall.
Oh, wow.
That movie from years ago.
Sure.
And he walked in, and I just smiled. And I looked at Acton, and I said, "This is amazing." And I said, "I hope he's on my wing." And so he went around, shook everybody's hand. And then that day he fought about 3 guys, and he was my winger. I had Keith Crowder and him all the way through.
Wow.
And boy, I think that was instrumental in getting us over the top, to be honest with you.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And Peterborough ended up being able to, have a lot of success once you left there. Did you guys feel super proud of the, generation that you had, risen that franchise up to and passed the torch on to the next guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that team the next year that won it, remember they had about 8 or 10 guys from the team I was on. And they have get-togethers all the time, because that's the only year Peterborough's ever won the cup.
Wow.
And so whenever they have a get-together, they always reach out to me.
Great.
And say, "You know what? You weren't part of the team, but you know all the guys, and everybody's pretty tight." So I go to all their functions. So.
Oh, wow.
I guess they felt sorry for me. I don't know.
Yeah, it must have been heartbreaking to lose that, but to just make it there, it's a super amazing accomplishment. And obviously a lot of attention gets put on the team. You mentioned a lot of guys got drafted. You got drafted by the Leafs, and tell me about that day, how did it feel to hear your name called, to know that you were, going to your team on, you've been following them, obviously living in Ontario as a young boy, get drafted by your hometown team. It's pretty
Oh
amazing.
yeah, it was thrilling. It's just that back in 1978, they obviously you're at home, right? And
Right.
there's no broadcast or anything like that. So I just remember sitting in the like I knew I had a chance to get drafted, but um, and you hear rumors of 2 or 3 teams and stuff. But I didn't think I'd be very high as a draft because I wasn't a big guy. I was 172 pounds, and you know, and back then it was pretty crazy, for in the league.
Right.
But I remember, yeah, I got drafted. Jim Gregory, the GM, phoned me. That's how I found out about it. And you know what? I was just out in the front lawn with a couple buddies. I didn't really, obviously, we celebrated that night. But, when I think back, someone asked me if I was nervous or anything because I was kind of my hometown and all that. And I wasn't at all.
Nice.
I don't know why, but maybe I kind of brainwashed myself that summer because I had a gym set up in my garage and I trained like crazy. Like I probably trained 4 hours a day,
Wow.
5 hours a day, and then skated for a couple months because I didn't want to let Roger down. And so I went real hard. And I was in phenomenal shape going into camp, which really helped. Yeah. But the team was an older team, and it was a very good team. They were probably only 2 or 3 pieces away from challenging for the cup because nobody was going to beat the Canadians back then. They were that good. So I thought I was going into a good situation. And then I knew the first year I spent in Moncton with the New Brunswick Hawks, which was an older team again, but they were half owned by Chicago as well. And so we had a great team there. So I knew I would get there eventually. And when I did, then Harold dismantled it.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happens sometimes, just bad timing.
Did you get to talk to Harold? What was he like? Did the players ever get an opportunity to talk to him much?
Some of the players did. Like Tiger had a good relationship with him, and Daryl and Lanny. But then other guys he didn't even talk to, like Turnbull and Salming. I guess he did a little bit. As far as the draft picks go, no. He'd nod at us, and that was about it.
Okay.
Because I don't think Quenville is probably the same as me. Not a lot said, but the only time we really saw Harold was for the team picture. When he would come out and be very flamboyant. But no, the older guys have stories about Harold, but he didn't spend a lot of time with us.
Well, it's too bad that he dismantled that team because I hear so many things about the possibility of that team going very, very far, and it's just disheartening to know that the Leafs had great teams, and to get disassembled like that. I'd love to play a clip of your first NHL game here. I have a nice little clip set up, and let's take.
That's the one where I snapped it with my eyes closed.
Number 4, Ron Grishner gets to it. Now they allowed it. Here's a pass. Well, what a way to begin your NHL career, Mark Kirton. Blossomed in New Brunswick last year under Eddie Johnson. Opens the scoring in the home opener, blasting one past.
It's funny, eh?
Yeah, that's really amazing. Yeah, very funny.
Yeah, they you know what? That was first shift, first shot, right?
That's I mean, to start your career that way, you must have just felt on top of the world. Do you remember that game? Do you remember everything about?
You know what?
That day?
I certainly remember the play. I don't remember the lead up to the game that much, but I did have some exhibition games, right, under my belt, and which was helpful for sure. And the fact that you're playing on a veteran team like that makes it pretty good as well. I mean, I think my very first game was in Boston, exhibition game against the Bruins. And they had a real tough team. And with O'Reilly and Jonathan and Wenzik and all these guys. And Toronto was tough too. Yeah. And so I remember sitting there in the first few minutes and watching Lanny and Wenzik blowing kisses at each other. And I thought, oh, this is not going to be good. And to back it up, a funny story, Darren, I remember in warm-up that first game, my skate blade got loose on my right skate. And so I had to get to the dressing room to get a new blade put on. And I went to the dressing room, sat down, and I realized I was in the wrong room. I was in the Bruin room.
Wow.
And so what happened, see, at the old Boston Garden, it was a very small rink. And it's hard to tell, and it had a short blue line to blue line. So, so many big bodies all over the place. And I was sort of panicking because I had to get this blade thing. So I got off and I'm sitting there and the Boston trainer comes in and he goes, son, you're on the wrong side. So I got up and just as I was leaving, warm up ended and the Bruins were coming in. And I was going, can you imagine if I just sat there and all those guys started coming in? Oh, the only guy I knew a little bit was Stan Jonathan from Peterborough, but I thought, oh my gosh. Wow. Anyways, that was quite a nerve-wracking opening game.
Yeah, no kidding. Did you get a chance to play with some of the top guys? Who did they have for a roommate? Who did they give you for line mates?
Yeah, no, it was good. In Toronto, I had Pat Boutet and Jerry Butler most of the time. Okay. Who were checking sort of grinder guys. I roomed the one roommate that I remember, two roommates actually. One was Daryl Sittler. Wow. I had him as a roommate in Vancouver the day that Terry Fox died. Oh, wow. So that's how I remember that so well, because Daryl left to go and see Terry at the end and then came back and told me before it hit the press, right? So I do remember that. Amazing. And then I remember in Chicago, Dan Maloney, after the team meeting, we went up to the room and I went to turn the TV on because I wanted to watch the soaps like we all did in hockey. Okay. So I turn on the soaps all ready to watch All My Children. And within like 2 seconds, he's behind me and turns it off. And he goes over to the window and pulls the blinds down. He says, kid, we're going to sleep. I said, all right, whatever.
Okay. All right. So, you got to listen to the veteran.
Oh, yeah. Especially him.
Yeah. Wow.
Gosh. But it was fun. It was fun. Those moments. And then my other big moments would have been when I got traded to Detroit and we came back to Toronto and we beat them 2 or 3 times. And I think I had a couple game winners and a couple stars. And that was a highlight in the career as well.
So you went to Detroit. You mentioned earlier the team struggled. What does it feel like going to a franchise that's really, really having their struggles? How did it feel?
There's 2 ways to look at it. One, when you go to a struggling team, you think you might get more ice time, you might get more opportunity. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you're a 3rd or 4th liner and you're on a struggling team, those are the guys that tend to get moved out in the shuffle. I see. And the reality is, most times, and you'll hear it said a lot, is you're only as good as your core, right? Sure. Your core are going to win you the games or lose you the games most of the time. But, so I found myself in the shuffle all the time. And what's frustrating is, you go down to the American League and you get 60, 70, 80 points and you're on the power play and everything, you're the captain. Then you go up to the NHL and you're kind of pigeonholed as a checker. Yeah. So the only time I got some more ice was Detroit that year. And I was on everything, power play, penalty killing, because they came in and in one practice, I'll never forget it, they called Peter Mahovlich, Dennis Polonich, Gilles Gilbert, Earl Thompson, and someone else to center ice and send them all to the minors. Can you imagine? Wow. So we got back to the dressing room, and after everybody showered, Dale McCourt and I were sitting beside each other. And I said, Chief, let's add up how many games those guys have played in total. And it was like 2,500 games or more, all sent down in one swoop. Whoa. And Chief says, the positive is you're going to get a lot more ice time, he says, which is true.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So, but then again, if your team's not winning, they're going to move things around, and that's the way it goes, right? It's all
Yeah.
timing a lot of time, right?
You came to Vancouver. We mentioned it earlier, but I remember you on a line with Tiger Williams and Ron DeLorme, and that seemed like a second line quite often. You referred to yourself many times to this as a checker, but you had an opportunity here, and I thought you guys did great together. It was a fun line to watch.
We did, and that was that first year I got traded there when we played Calgary. And you're going well when two things happen. One is the coach is putting you out every other shift because he recognizes that you're going good. And the other is, and this is hard to explain unless you've been there, but sometimes, especially in the playoffs, you get in a zone, right? Mm-hmm. And the zone you're in just allows you to just make natural moves that you ordinarily wouldn't be able to make if you were thinking about it, if that makes any sense. Sure. It just all comes so natural that you're in a zone and you're playing way above your head. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened there in that playoff. And Roger was putting a Steamers line out and then us right after. We got a ton of ice time.
Sure did,
so,
yeah.
But it was a surprise to me because I hadn't played in the NHL playoffs. And Tiger told me, he says, be ready because it's going to speed up 5-10 times faster. And I'm going like, how can it be that much faster? And then Riseborough must have whacked me about 6 times in the first shift. And I thought, you know what, this is moving quick.
Yeah, so, it's amazing the difference between regular season and playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
It's just completely different hockey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How much did you like living here on the West Coast? How did you like the city of Vancouver?
I loved it there. I mean, I rented a house off of, I remember his name. He used to play for the BC Lions. His name was Rick Goltz.
Okay.
And I think he went on to Stampede Wrestling after and called himself the Prairie something or other.
Wow.
But I rented his house in Burnaby. And it was a great setup. But I never realized how beautiful Vancouver was until we were out on a boat, and you could see the snow on the mountains. There was a stove on this boat, so we must have been. Would it be crab or lobster? We were bringing something up and putting them in the pot and enjoying it and having a beer. And I thought, you know what? Doesn't get any better than this. This is beautiful.
Nice.
So but then when I got traded there, it rained for the first 10 days, that mist.
Right.
And I said, oh, this is what they mean by, when it gets rainy.
Yeah.
But overall, I loved my time in Vancouver. And, but you know what, in this business, there's always change, and there's not many people that spend their whole career with one team like Stan.
Sure.
Yeah.
What does a third liner make back in the early 80s? What was your top salary? Do you remember?
Yeah, I'll go better than that. Harold, when I was a second pick for Toronto, I got $5,000 to sign.
Wow.
Okay. So what did I do? I did what every player does. Instead of going out and buying a cottage that, might make money down the line, had to go out and buy a Corvette like everybody else, and which fell apart after, Actually, I left it on the Detroit Freeway one, and that was the end of that when the belly fell out of it.
Wow.
And it didn't take long for people to come and take those parts. So, and back then I remember getting a 3-way contract, if you can imagine. Wow. It was $42,000 in Toronto, 13 in the American League, and 9 in the International League.
Okay.
Can you imagine? And someone told me the other day that, you had 19 goals or something in 50 games, which is about almost a 30-goal year, mm-hmm. which puts you at about a $4 million player today.
Wow.
If you can play the 200-foot game, if you can play both ends.
Sure.
But you know what, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? Mm-hmm. And I can also say I should have started selling real estate earlier too, because in Oakville, it's the richest area per capita, so Canada.
Right.
So
Well, you must have prided yourself on playing that 200-foot game. I guess, that makes you very valuable. It doesn't put you on the highlight reel every night on
yeah,
Sports Center, but, it does probably make you very valuable to the coaches. Obviously, you were valuable to Roger Nielsen, and you also had a really good long AHL career. A lot of guys must have loved having you on the team because you're playing that 200-foot game.
well, I think it's longevity. I'm actually almost more proud of surviving that long in the American League.
Nice.
Because we think it was rough and physical in the NHL. You should have seen what it was like down there. And I keep here forever on stories of some of those arenas, going in and playing the Philadelphia Broad Street Bullies, their farm team, where they just didn't have 4 guys, they had 16 guys, and they go walking by your dressing room going, kill, kill, kill. We have something like out of slap shot.
Wow.
And I remember Daryl Sutter and I looking at each other. He was my winger. And Sudsy says, do you really want to go out there? I said, not really. But what choice do we have, right? So it was pretty crazy in those leagues. So that's a long time to survive in that league. Absolutely.
I remember hearing a bit of a story between Eddie Johnson, who was your coach, fighting Pat Quinn at center ice. Tell that little story briefly.
Yeah, you know what? That was my first. Let me think here. That would be my very first 2 or 3 games in pro. Like that schedule maker should be shot because he booked 3 games in a row.
Wow.
Like New Brunswick Hawks was the very first team in the Maritimes, right? Pro team. And it was owned by Chicago. So they'd send 10 guys and we'd have 10 from Toronto. So we were always going to be a pretty good team. So we played against the Maine Mariners Flyers farm team, first 3 games of the year.
Wow.
2 in Moncton, then 1 in Portland. So the first game, there was about 3 different bench brawls, but they were all on the ice and they all ended, what have you. The second game, we had a bench brawl because Rocky Sagnac decided to challenge their bench. and on jumped John Paddock and away it went. And the guy I ended up with was a guy named Frank Bathe, who was this big red beard and 6'2", and he was going around swinging at guys, and I couldn't hold him. So I threw him in a pile where all the guys were against the bench or against the boards. And Eddie Johnson reached over at our coach and grabbed Bathe, and Pat Quinn saw that. So he came around and grabbed EJ, and they rolled on the pile. They landed on the ice with their suits on. As a matter of fact, they both had pinstripe suits. And they were throwing them like boom, 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 and slipping around. And they were almost on the button at center ice. And so I had Linsman at that point, and Kenny and I are looking and going, you believe, everybody stopped to watch it.
Sure, yeah.
And so both of them got thrown out. And the next thing you know, Ken Linsman is in our dressing room, swinging his stick around in our room. It was, and then we had to go and play in Portland. And Murray Bannerman was our goalie. And we said to Banner, you know what? Don't be causing any problems here because we're short guys. Because we 3 guys got the flu in warm-up, decided they didn't want to play. So we're short, and Banner causes another brawl. And they actually walked us right off the ice with 5 minutes to go in the first and chalked it on to the start of the second.
Wow.
It was Darren, I don't even know how to describe what it was like down there, other than the fact that, thank goodness, I was in phenomenal shape because I could survive from that perspective. But it was nuts. It was nuts.
Does New Brunswick feel like a bit of a second home? You spent so much time there?
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. With Moncton, 2 years in Moncton, 2.5 in Freddie. Absolutely. And you know what? I can tell you with all honesty that the salt of the earth people down there,
sure,
right through the whole Maritimes. I mean, they would invite us over for dinners and just great people. And I still have friends today that are there. Absolutely. Yeah, it was a good experience. People say, well, yeah, we played in the Central Hockey League where it was sunny all the time and we flew. And I said, yeah, but, we have the people, or, the salt of Earth people, and yeah, we bust, but I wouldn't have traded that for anything.
I have another clip I want to play. You've been talking about tough hockey. This is a little bit of a skirmish you had when you were in Detroit against Montreal, and it ends up being a really good move on your part. You ended up trading Guy Lapointe for yourself, and yeah, this is a kind of a fun clip to check out. Back in 1981.
I don't know what Guy was so upset about. All I did was bump one of his players.
Yeah, he got really upset, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I gotta go back a second here because they're showing you coming up to the. Oh, maybe they'll show it in a second.
Yeah, maybe on a replay.
Yeah, I think you hit Keith Acton at center.
I did. I just bumped him a bit.
Not very hard, yeah.
It was a love tap, Darren.
You played with Keith, so
no, I think something happened the shift before, and I just kind of gave him a little bump, and Guy came out of nowhere, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, it was a good trade because he ended up getting kicked out.
Except look at the ref. I mean, that's the problem back then too. Not that I was any kind of a fighter, but at the end of the day, when the refs tie your arms up and are lying on top of you,
not good.
What are you supposed to do?
I think you're right, Mickey. Woods was third man in. Well, I don't know whether we'll have to wait and see.
I think I might shave my mustache again.
Paul Woods tied up. He got away.
Chirping at each other quite a bit.
Oh, I know.
Went to his aid to try and get him off.
Were you good at that part of the game?
You just you kind of get good at it after a while. Just whether you're fighting or you're not fighting, and there's a lot of chirping that goes on the bench, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot more today, from what I hear. Guys are pretty sharp today.
Well, here it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like you say.
Yeah, that wasn't much.
No.
And there comes Lapointe.
That's pretty crazy. Look at Guy in there. Even the Flowers in there.
Yeah, Guy Lafleur, yeah. Surprising, he wouldn't get involved in that very often.
Yeah.
Lapointe's gone.
Yeah. That's a funny clip. I haven't seen that one in years.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to find that and think, oh yeah, I'd love to play that for you. Because
yeah, that's good.
Hockey back then was just such a different thing than it is now. Do you like how NHL has evolved? Do you miss that physical aspect that was there?
You know what? Not really. I think the game had to change, and I think what really stood out that the game had to be changed was there was a couple of years there where the hooking and holding was going on, and the hitting of the hands. And I remember towards the end of my career, when you're going down on a one-on-one with a defenseman, you almost had to kind of bat his stick away before you even tried to make a move on him, because he would just get his stick between your legs or on your hands or something, and then you got someone behind you that's outweighs you by 50 pounds hooking you. So it was difficult to play, and they recognized that. They changed the rules. And the reality is the game is way better today. The players are better, they're faster, they can shoot harder. And games can still get kind of out of hand, and there's hard hitting games and stuff. So we're not missing a time. The bench brawls we met, that's what, doesn't happen anymore, but that's okay. That's okay. People can watch video on those.
Yeah. So you did mention the Leafs briefly. Another heartbreak for Southern Ontario and all the Leafs nation across. I understand that you still bleed blue and white. Yeah, you're a pretty dedicated fan still for that organization.
Sure am. Yeah. It was a tough one to watch. I tell you, it took a few days to get over it. And I talked to a few other guys, Vive and those guys, and everybody was kind of stinging from it, and Wendell. But you know what? It's I'll tell you, I got a text a few days ago from Paul Woods, who was my old winger. He's actually done the color for Detroit for the last 35 years, right? Maybe. Radio color.
Yeah.
And he brought up a good point. He said, take a look at the New York Islanders, right? They've got one player, or they actually don't have a player in the top 30 of scoring.
Wow.
Okay. Barzal's close, and
Mhm.
he's their best player, right?
Yeah.
And let's compare them to Toronto. Like if you take a look at how many series the Islanders have been involved in the last 5 years, there's ton. Like I can't remember what the number is. I think what do you say, 7 or 8? I can't remember.
Mhm.
And Toronto's hasn't won a series, right? And look at our core versus theirs. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I
They
do.
have 4 lines that are
Right.
heavy, solid, and play the same, almost like the style that Peterborough plays all the time. 4 lines, and they balance the lineup. And look how far the Islanders are. They beat Tampa Bay the other night. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting comparison. So the question is, where does Toronto go from here? I wouldn't want to be making those decisions because, Montreal got as far as they did, mainly because of Price and their 4 horses on defense. But I'm not sure which direction Toronto goes at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it must be hard for a guy like Dubas to know how to assemble a team. So many teams that have had Stanley Cup success over the last, let's say 15 years, had those 2 top superstars and then, had a little bit of a core and then, built the pieces around it. He's got 4 guys that he pays a lot of money to, and then, filters down and, you're hard to fill in those last few lines. So, I do see what you're saying. The Islanders are a team that, has had that type of success, having the 4 lines. Same with Vegas. When they came in, they were able to have those 4 lines and just keep rolling them at teams. And
here's the thing to think about, Darren. What about Komarov for the Islanders, who played in Toronto for years? He's playing with Barzal, number 1 line.
Yeah.
But he can't play in Toronto?
But he can't play in Toronto.
See? So I think, and then let's look at who the GM is of the Islanders too.
Yeah.
Lou Lamoriello.
Yeah.
And then they've got a coach that won the Cup with Washington, which I was actually there for that game. If you can believe it, I flew to Vegas after my wife gave me a pass. I flew to Vegas, and Coley Campbell and Chris King, knowing my situation, set me all up with a pass. I sat in the box with who's the safety guy? George Paris.
George Paris. Yeah.
I sat with him and Willie O'Ree.
Wow.
And watched the cup being handed to Ovechkin.
Amazing.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were there for that. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you to the wife and
it was great. I mean, it was a fabulous. Where I was going with that is the coach of Washington is now coaching the Islanders, so there's some magic there.
Yeah.
He's a good coach.
Barry Trotz is a fantastic coach.
Absolutely.
There's been a lot of talk about Barzal here because he's a Coquitlam-born boy.
I didn't know that.
He's raised in the Burnaby hockey system. So local kid from here. So
wow, he's a good player.
Yeah, he sure is. Yeah. We'll see if the Leafs can figure it out. They seem to try, and everybody talks about them so much, but they just can't seem to win that series ever.
I know.
Yeah,
they'll get there one day.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've talked tons about your hockey career. It's been really fun. I bet you we could just sit down and talk for hours and days on end about it and all the amazing people that you've met. How happy are you that you're part of the NHL Alumni? You've got 3 organizations that you're part of. I hear so many amazing things about the Canucks alumni and all the great things they do. How happy are you that you're part of those groups?
Yeah, you know what? The Canucks one I just joined about a year ago. Okay. And I'm also with the Toronto Maple Leafs alumni, which is much, much bigger.
Sure.
And I think that the Vancouver alumni are kind of looking at Toronto as a prototype.
Great.
Because they're doing so many good things, for charity and what have you, and helping out the guys that need help and stuff. Vancouver is just kind of in the stage right now. They're trying to get more and more players involved. But yes, I do see clips, and I'm on their there's Zooms when the meetings come on, and it's fun to be a part, and it's fun to see old teammates on it for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you mentioned charity there. One of the reasons we had you on today is try to raise awareness for a very important charity. ALS has really devastated a lot of families. It has impacted mine. My grandmother was diagnosed with ALS. It was really tough on her, on the entire family. This has been a charity that's near and dear to my heart. I've helped out. I've been able to raise funds, and I'm very proud of that. You were starting to feel something wrong going on with your body about in 2015, I understand, and it took 3 years for you to finally get a diagnosis. But you were diagnosed with ALS, I guess, in 2018, and you're really trying to raise awareness, trying to raise funds, trying to get behind this cause so we can try to eradicate this disease, which is really, really tough on many people, especially families that go through it.
No, you're right, and yeah, it's been a struggle at times, but back in 2015 when my symptoms started, I went through a lot of testing for 2 or 3 years, and was finally diagnosed in 2018 with ALS.
Wow.
And yeah, the world crashed for sure. It was a tough pill to swallow when you're looking forward to, retiring from work, and the kids are older and you can start to travel. All those things kind of get pushed aside, which is difficult. And then telling the kids was hard. Thank goodness they were older. A lot of my, I call them pals that have this, have young kids. That's a whole different ballgame too. But at the end of the day, I just decided that, as humbling and shocking as it was, that I've got to face it. So I face it with 3 rules. I face it with a strong faith, a strong family, and huge support from friends and the sports world. So if you got all 3 of those things on your side, you can get through day to day a lot easier. And I promised myself that I would try not to have any down days, because if I'm down, everybody else is down. And with the family, as much as the impact is on me, it's on them too, right? And so, because they're the extension of me. Whenever I can't do something, they're right there to do it, like almost on call. Sure. So I'm so proud of them for being there for me, for sure. As far as treatments go, there really isn't a cure. There's a 2 to 5 year lifeline on average, but hey, there's people that go 10, 15 years too. And Darren, honestly, I'd rather be in that category, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So it's I'm on a couple treatments. I've been on them for 2.5 years, and I'm looking forward to trying new stuff, which is coming down the pipe, and hopefully it will slow the progression.
With COVID hitting the world just over a year ago now, people getting vaccinations so quickly, does this give you hope that maybe FDA approval will happen for drugs a lot sooner? We haven't seen vaccines get this quick approval ever in the history of man. Do you think this bodes well for drugs that could help you?
I do. Because you're right, COVID, in 2 or 3 weeks, they've got the vaccines going through approval. But just so you know, the one treatment I'm on, it took 2 years to approve. By the time it went through FDA in the States, and then it went through Health Canada, and then provincial. Matter of fact, some of the provinces still haven't approved it. So like over 2 years is not right when you've got a short lifeline. And so, right now there's about 160 drug companies around the world that are in the ALS space, and about 80 trials going on. And some of them are going into phase 2 and 3. And so lots of positive stuff. But I just want to be clear that the type of ALS I have is what's called sporadic. and that's like 95% have this.
Okay.
There's a 5 percentile that have genetic, which is what Chris Snow has for assistant GM at Calgary.
Okay.
And there is a breakthrough in the genetic one. And he's on a drug, Tofferson, that's really helping him.
Wow.
But there's no breakthrough in ours yet. So having said that, you know, it's a frustrating thing because it's almost like the forgotten illness. And 80 years since Lou Gehrig died, and we've had some real fearless leaders that have created huge momentum, and then they die.
Wow.
And then it's a restart. So there's been way too many restarts with this illness, and it's time that that since Lou Gehrig Day put it on the map, it's time now that the government's got to be aware that we need research money, we need faster pathways to get these drugs into us, and we need awareness.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the awareness is starting in a lot of ways. That ice bucket challenge was really huge. That seemed to really put it on the front burner, and you know, a lot of money was raised for that. How happy were you to see how much success that one had?
That was huge success. Now that was a few years ago where it really took off. But guess what? Those two guys are gone. That started that. So the case in point of what I was saying.
Sure.
And now I've seen some video on Wallach from IMALS in the US, who has a huge group, Advocacy. Well, you know what? Last video, it didn't look great.
No.
So he's starting to hurt. So that's the issue with this, right? We have to move quick and faster. So I'm a member of two groups, ALS Canada and ALS Action Canada. And ALS Action Canada has a lot of ALS patients in Vancouver, actually, in BC.
Okay.
And it's a patient-led group. So it's a strong voice group. And we've been doing lots of presentations over the last couple of weeks to the government, the Liberals and the Conservatives, to try and have a breakthrough. And then ALS Canada is kind of the big kid on the block. So I've managed to raise, I think, about 75,000 in the last 3.5 weeks for ALS Canada.
Right.
And now I've switched to Sunnybrook in Toronto, their ALS research, because they have a couple exciting trials.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm trying to funnel the next 2 weeks fundraising into Sunnybrook.
You mentioned Lou Gehrig. June 2nd was ALS Day in Major League Baseball. I hear that you've identified many former athletes that have contracted this disease. A lot of these other leagues, are you guys petitioning to try to get the recognition from the rest of the sporting world?
Yeah, it's actually on my to-do list to reach out to the guys that were behind getting MLB to come to the plate for the June 2nd awareness, because arguably that's probably the biggest day ever for ALS.
Nice. And
it's fine to have ALS month of June, but unless you have a big event, I mean, we do have a big event the end of June, the walk, but to be on the map through all 30 teams in MLB is huge.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping these two guys will turn around and I'll nudge them and they can move towards NFL.
Nice.
Because NFL's got, like, I made a list of 50 guys like in a couple hours.
Wow.
You know, and the most recent guy was a Chicago Bears warrior on defense in the 80s, Steve McMichael.
Yeah.
If you ever want to see a powerful video, watch that one on the YouTube.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a guy that was just a warrior.
Yeah, I remember Mongo a lot from those Bears, 85 Bears championship
Well, have a look at him now, because he's, you know, it's really attacked him.
Wow.
And, you know, it's really humbled him. But, you know, it's a strong video. But at the end of the day, I think the NFL has to look at it. And if they do, along with MLB, we'll never have an awareness problem again.
Yeah. Why do you think so many athletes end up getting this?
Well, we say that, and I've been asked that before. And you know, yeah, have I been concussed? Yeah, for sure. I remember I got concussed in Chicago one night, And I remember trying to get up and I fell down again, trying to get up, fell down again. And I remember Tiger saying, stay down, stay down. But I woke up in the dressing room and I was on the ice for practice the next day. And it happened all the time. So then the question becomes, is there a correlation? And I truly believe that, that there's no question concussions are a risk factor.
Okay.
But you know what, Darren, there's lots of people that weren't an athlete that also got ALS, right?
Sure.
And I'm not counting them when I was doing the list. So I think it's something that the researchers are looking into as they get additional funds. They want to see if there is a correlation from an elite athlete. Yeah. And so I think the book's out on that. We don't know for sure yet.
What is the one thing that you want people to know about ALS?
Well, I think now, like before I got it, I didn't know the difference between MS, Parkinson's, or ALS, to be honest with you. I do remember seeing video of Lou Gehrig being wheeled onto for his speech and all that stuff, just as a kid watching that, but I still didn't know what it was. But now I honestly think there's so many more people that know what it is, even though their lives haven't been touched by it.
Sure.
Like your life has been touched by it, so you kind of know. But I think people now know, and I think when they see a petition going around or they see a fundraiser, they're more apt to get behind it and say, you know what, ALS has not been treated fairly, and so now it's time to back them. You know, and with COVID and HIV for that matter too, yeah. You know, they found solutions for that. So let's make ALS kind of a priority as a rare disease and see where it goes. So we're pushing pretty hard at the government level and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
But I just want people to get loud when they see this.
Yeah, let's get loud for sure. Yeah, it's tough for families. Obviously, it's tough for the individuals like yourself, but you know, great guys like you put on a brave face and you know, charge forward every day. You know, the families are the ones that, you know, have to end up taking the ball, and you know, they go through a lot of the tough times. I
just said that, you know, I don't want people to change around me because I'm not changing around them. Right. So it's not a pity party, and I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I've only had a few people that get kind of broke up over this, but you know what? That weren't family. But I just tell them, I say, guys, nothing's going to change. Like if you don't chirp me, I'm chirping you anyways. So at the end of the day, you know what? I just don't want to change, and you just, you know, as far as a financial standpoint goes, someone told me it's about 200 grand from beginning to end with this. I said, there's no way. Do you know what? It is. Because you got to renovate stuff. You need equipment for every different phase to transfer. Like my legs are fried now. So I'm in a new, I call it my Ironside Raymond Burr machine here.
I see.
And you know what? But, you know, it's 25 grand, this thing.
Wow. But
the government, and that's the only thing the government covers a little bit of. They cover half of it. But at the end of the day, you got to, it does cost that much, and it's a drain on everybody, and you just gotta stay ahead of the curve, I guess is what I'm trying to say with it. Yeah. So, are the drugs seeming to work? Are they helping you? It's hard to say. We debate this all the time because when I started the Edaravone, which is the Japanese drug, the big one, you know, I'm on my 29th month. Okay. Right. So just over 2 years. Now, when I started taking it, I had pretty strong legs still. And now I don't have any legs. So, you know, I know my wife says to me, you know, I wonder what it would have been like if you didn't take it at all. Maybe your body's just slow moving with this disease. And then I say, well, if I stop taking it, it might be in my front, right? Breathing, swallowing, all other stuff. Yeah. So if it ain't broke, I think I'm going to stay with it. Sure. Because the longer I can keep it out of my front, the better off I'm going to be. Yeah. So it's a really tough one, Darren, to say that it's really working or it's not. But there is one coming down the pipe called AMX that just went for approval with Health Canada. Okay. And that's why we're pushing pretty hard for a quicker access. So if it gets through, I'll just put it in my cocktail with the rest of the stuff here, and hopefully it'll help as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
When you meet someone that just gets the diagnosis, what do you tell them? What do you say?
well, it's funny you should say that, because I have actually 3 calls I have to make to people. Because I'm ahead of a lot of people that are just diagnosed, they have no clue from an equipment standpoint or accessory standpoint of what to get, where to turn. They're reeling, right?
Yeah.
Like one guy called me from back in grade 7. I kind of remembered his name because we were on the same relay team, but I called him up and he said, look, he says, I saw you on Hockey Night in Canada when Ron McLean held your shirt up. And he said, I wanted to reach out because I got diagnosed last week and I'm scared to death. I don't know what to do.
Wow.
So, you try and prop those guys up and give them some guidance. And I remember Roger doing the same thing when he had cancer. He had a 2-page list of names. And I said, what's that? And he said, why, these are all people I need to call to prop them up, give them some positive and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So I think it's my place to do 2 things: use my platform where I can, and second of all, help others that are going through the same problem.
Sure.
My Twitter campaign, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's been phenomenal. I got 25 former NHLers, Hall of Famers, coaches. They all sent videos, 45 seconds to just over a minute. And I put out 2 a day for a couple of weeks leading up to Lou Gehrig. And I've got about another 5 or 6 to release this week for Sunday. And then I'm going to group them all together on a stick or however I do it, and have somebody edit it all so they all mesh together.
Nice.
And put a strong note together and go after the government with it.
Wow.
That's sort of my plan.
Love to help you with that. I do editing all the time.
If you do editing, you could be a huge help.
Yeah, love to help.
Somehow they need to be stitched in a way that you take a little bit from each one. It's a bit, and they're all different, let's call them scripts that these guys are saying. But I'm gonna, if you haven't seen the videos, I will send you a note that actually you can go on my Twitter profile, and there's about 23 of them on there.
I understand. I think it's Kurt Speaks ALS. Is that?
It's at Kurtz Speaks ALS. Yes.
Kurtz with an S.
That's right.
Okay. Kurtz.
And if you go on it and click on profile and you scroll way down, you'll start to see all the videos, with mine being the first one, which I'm actually rubbing into some of these guys like Ron McLean, Don Cherry, all the Leaf captains, Shannon, a whole bunch of guys. Nice. And I just got Jamie Campbell and Adam Graves and a few guys, but it tells me how many views they have in the lower corner.
Okay.
So I think Ron McLean's probably got the most of all those guys at about 25,000, but I'm sitting at 51,000. So I'm rubbing like I had a 2-minute. So it's kind of funny.
That is funny. Yeah. Twitter's a new thing for you.
I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not promising the world, but I would love to help. I recently, started this a year ago. So I'm new to a lot of the social media aspects, a lot of these editing things, but I edit quite frequently, and I would love to help. I've been very happy to see you spreading the awareness of this. It's nice to have somebody that's came to Vancouver, touched a lot of lives here, helped the local team. Just a guy that's going through this and seeing, so you going out there and talking to so many people trying to help. It's been very, very inspiring.
Well, I really appreciate you reaching out to me, for sure. It's not every day that I get interviewed by Aaron Rodgers. I can tell you that right now.
Wow.
So, and you look like him. So I would like to know what team you're going to.
I can't divulge that quite yet.
Okay, I know you're getting married. That's okay.
Okay.
Anyway, it's funny.
That is funny. One thing I wanted to touch on just before we go is that COVID has forced the real estate industry into mostly online viewing, I guess that kind of came at a good time for you.
Oh, huge. Landed right on my lap because if you look back, everybody really didn't know what the future was going to be. What really surprised me though is the real estate market got stronger.
Yeah.
If you can imagine, that doesn't even make any sense because everybody was afraid to show their house and what have you. So once it got to the stage where people were comfortable wearing masks and gloves, and the process and strategy was set up properly, people started seeing houses. And what happened was, for my case, I would say to people, and don't forget, I've been in this 30 years, so I know a lot of the properties in Oakville, pretty well all of them. So people would say, well, Mark, we want you to list the house. Come on over and have a look at it. That's the normal process.
Yeah.
Well, now I just say, listen, here's some weed transfer instructions. Take pictures of every room, send it to me. I already know the model and everything, and I can figure out the pricing. We'll do a Zoom presentation and go over all the details. And you know what? Everybody was fine with that.
Excellent.
Only one person pressed me a little bit. And I finally said to him, yeah, I've got ALS. I've had it for, symptoms for 6 years, I guess, ago. And I said, we're still doing the same amount of business we've always done.
Right.
And he stopped me right there and he said, that's fine. He says, I'm glad we did the Zoom. I see you're normal. And so I beat 3 other agents out on the listing.
Great.
So you see, it's people are amazing when you're behind the 8 ball. Like I remember when I couldn't squeeze the gas pump, right?
Yeah.
Both my hands were done. My golf club wouldn't stay in my hand very well. And I remember golfing with Gabby Boudreau.
Yeah.
He wouldn't give me any strokes, even though my right hand, I had to almost tape it to my club, and he wouldn't give me strokes. So, but I remember at the gas station, I was out of gas, and I kind of cruised into the pump and rolled into it. And then I got out, and I'm going, it was cold, and I'm trying to squeeze the gas pump, and I just didn't have the strength. I looked up, and within about 10 seconds, 3 guys there. 3 people from wherever.
Jumping.
We can do that, sir. We can do that. No problem. And they didn't even ask. They just grabbed the thing and did it.
Great.
So, people for the most will step up.
Yeah.
In any situation.
Well, I'm glad to know that I heard you were a little apprehensive on telling your customers and clients that you contracted ALS because you thought it might affect the business, but I'm really happy to hear that it hasn't, and you're still going great guns and making lots of money for your legacy, and on and on and on, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm going to help as much as I can help here. I'm glad to be able to spread awareness. I'm glad to be able to just talk hockey with you, though. That was my really big, exciting part of this, is be able to just bring in and talk about your NHL career, your AHL career. Hockey is, such a great provider of bringing people together and really making more families. And, this is nice to, be able to help as much as I can help. And see you tell your story to people. It is very inspiring and really great to have you as a guest.
Well, listen, like I said, I can't thank you enough for inviting me. And I've never turned down an opportunity because it's a chance to spread the word on it, right? But no, I don't have any issues at all. In closing, I will say a funny little story. I got interviewed in Peterborough couple of years ago, maybe a little longer, and Peterborough Examiner newspaper, because we were there for our 78 team reunion.
Oh, wow.
And Gary Green said, this guy wants to talk to you out there. Are you okay with it? And I said, yeah. He said, he's going to ask you some ALS questions. No problem. So I went out there and I talked to him for an hour.
Wow.
But I'm thinking, this is how naive I was in social media. I'm thinking, okay, well, it's a little paper, not a big deal. So, and I hadn't come out with it anywhere. I was hiding everything.
I see.
And so sure enough, I'm driving home the next day with Keith Crowder. My phone is like lighting up like a Christmas tree, but I'm not answering anything because we're having laughs and what have you. Yeah. So I get home and I walk in and my wife says to me, and she's quite techie. She says, so when did you decide you were going to release that you got ALS? I said, I didn't. I haven't. She said, well, it's all over the place. I'm getting calls too, and it's on Facebook. And I said, all I did was like a quick 45-minute interview with a Peterborough paper. And she just shook her head because it was everywhere, just out of that little paper.
Wow.
So at that point, I said, there's a reason why that happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I decided, okay, screw it. Let's just let it out of the bag and away we go. And so that's why I did this Twitter thing and joined these groups. And in the winter, I want to do a virtual concert.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to try and get, if I don't get Jim Cuddy through Ron McLean, he's a hockey fanatic.
Of course.
I'm going to get somebody to play out of their studio. Wow. And every couple songs, we'll have a voice promo, even if we play these ones over again, because they're good ones.
Oh, man.
Just to raise money for virtually.
That's exciting. Huge
That's
fan.
the plan.
Huge fan of Jim Cuddy and Blue Rodeo, and
yeah, me too.
Fantastic. There is a virtual event on the 20th. You just briefly talked about it, but just tell people about.
Yeah,
that
it's really the first one that I've actually been a part of, because I really didn't know much about it until this year. But normally it's a walk, and now it's virtually. So what people do is it starts at 10 a.m. and they there's a whole bunch of ALS teams, and mine's Team Kurtz, and you raise money the whole month of June leading up to that. And so it starts at 10 a.m. virtually, and then at 2 o'clock, and then you go out and do your thing with your family, your friends, take pictures, video, and then you post them and come back at 2 or 3 o'clock, and they have a concert and all this kind of stuff. So this will be my first year of seeing this. I know that it's the big fundraiser of the year. Okay. So like I said, I'm doing pretty well with ALS. I just got to get going on the Sunnybrook link. But in the end, I think they're going to have a pretty successful month of June, considering it's not virtual, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's what's coming up, and then we'll see. We'll tally it all up. The funny thing is, tomorrow I go to my old golf course, and I'm sitting on the par 3 up at Greystone, and I've got 150 T-shirts with Help Kurtz and ALS, which I'm going to hand to each one of them, and we'll have a gimmick on the par 3. And I'm sure when they get home with the shirt, they'll be guilted into getting on their computer and donating. Nice. But it'll be fun to chirp the guys and see the guys again that I played with every Wednesday, every summer. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow.
I'm so happy that you vowed not to change, and you said chirp so many times through this hour. I think that's one of your favorite aspects of getting together with the boys and the people, and I'm glad that you still get that opportunity, get to have some time with the guys and feel like you're just normal. Everything's been great. It's just like hanging out with the guys as I always have.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said to you, it's not every day you get interviewed by Aaron Rodgers.
I haven't heard that I look
like him. Take a good look.
Okay, right on.
Or get someone else to look at both.
You're a big Packers fan, I guess.
Oh, big twat. So I got on right now.
Yeah, I know. I can see that.
And not because of that. It just happened to be that.
Funny.
It just happened I happen to think you look like him a little bit.
Wow, that's great.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Well, this was amazing. What a great time I had. Thanks so much. Have fun tomorrow. Enjoy that June the 20th, the rest of this month. Congratulations on the fundraising goals meeting, and I'm sure it's just going to just keep steamrolling from here. And I look forward to helping. I would really love to do that editing. We'll communicate about it and how you'd like it to go. And I'll do my best to help you out.
That's great. No, thanks very much for volunteering that. And is it nice in Vancouver right now?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Nice day. It's a nice day here too.
Yeah, it's very humid here. Unusually humid this past week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, kind of feels like Ontario with
Yeah.
your humidity.
Yeah, exactly. All right, my man.
Okay,
That was
all the
great.
best.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, take care of
Okay,
yourself, and
we'll talk by email. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
Thanks, Darren.
All
Take
right.
care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye. Okay. Wow. That was really great. I was really excited and spent a lot of time researching and getting ready for Mark. I remember him back in the early 80s. And yeah, tough that he's going through ALS and such a hard thing for families to go through, but he's fighting it like a warrior, like he always has been his whole entire life. It's so tough to make the NHL, people, especially back in the days that he did. He talked about how it was a war almost every time you went on the ice. Small guy, 5'10", 170 pounds, but he had tons of skill and had people like Roger Nielsen helping him get there. And a great guy, super fun to talk to. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It was really fantastic. I want to talk to you about our partners and sponsors briefly before we close the show. Just bear with me for a second and we'll pull up our website and our sponsors page. Anchor's been a great partner and sponsor for Complete Sports Media. They've been great at posting on multiple podcast platforms. Go to anchor.fm, and they call themselves the easiest place to make a podcast. So thank you, Anchor. Verbero, the hockey equipment and apparel company, industry leader in technology, performance, and value. Pampas and Possibilities. They design and sell dried florals, do floral arrangements and installations. And finally, Forever Living, the aloe vera company. They grow and manufacture aloe vera based products for health and beauty. You can just go to our website as you see here, click on one of these boxes, and it'll take you to the site. You can purchase products from these companies, and we have some discounted rates when you do so. So, yeah, thanks again to Mark Kirton. I appreciate the time. Thank you to his family, giving him up for an hour, and thank you to all his clients. I'm really happy to hear that the real estate business is actually going better than it was before the pandemic. And I look forward to talking a lot more about Mark in the future. I hope you can get on some of these causes. ALS is a really tough thing to go through for people, and we need to find a cure, and we need to find get these drugs in the guys so that they and the women that suffer through it, so they can delay these symptoms and stop it altogether, hopefully soon with a cure. Anyway, thank you for your time as always. Go to completemedianetwork.com. Tons of stuff going on there. As always, completesportsmedia.com. We've got so many podcasts set up this week. We've got another one with Olivier Philpin today, talking about some of the Euro Cup, and Tanner Bozer tomorrow, the UFC heavyweight fighter. Excited to have him back as a guest. So thanks again. Take care of yourself. Love you lots. Bye for now.